Hello, it's Simon Zutshi here, and this property education video, I want to share with you the 3 myths that you've been led to believe about investing in UK property. I'm going to answer the question, is it worth investing in property in 2024? So look, I've been investing myself since 1995. I became financially independent in 2001, and in 2003, I set up the Property Investors Network over 20 years ago. And PIN is now the largest network around the UK for property investors. Now, my ear is firmly to the ground all around the UK. I hear what's going on at a grassroots level. And I can tell you right now, there are 3 big myths that people are being told that are stopping people investing this year in 2024. And I think these are wrong. That's why I'm exposing these 3 big myths you have been told, because they could stop you from investing in property. And I think that's a tragedy. So what's the first big myth? The first myth is the property market is going to crash. Well, let's think about that. The last time we saw a really big property market crash was back in 2008. It was caused by the global financial crisis. Basically, banks had lent lots of money in the early to mid-2000s to people who really couldn't afford to take on those mortgages. They had what was called self-certification. People were signing to say they could afford to pay the mortgage, and they never could. And the banks took all this debt, they bundled it up, sold it to other banks, and it became toxic debt. It was supposed to be really good, secure debt, but it wasn't. As a result, all of the property markets around the world crashed. It was very hard to get finance, and many markets crashed 20, 30%. In some places like Northern Ireland, prices even dropped as much as 60%, and parts of northeast of England also, property prices crashed down. Now, what happened? Well, obviously, prices came back to an affordable level. People started to buy again. Then for about 12 years, there was this property boom. And whenever there's a property boom, there's normally a correction. And I must admit, towards the end of the 2019, 2020, I thought there was probably going to be a correction. Then COVID came. And obviously, everyone was worried. It was completely unprecedented. You know, remember lockdowns. The Bank of England said they thought property prices would crash 16% on average. But the UK government stepped in. They can't afford for that to happen because the economy is based very much on retail and also property. And so they introduced lots of things such as stamp duty holidays. They introduced bounce back loans, which were supposed to be for businesses to get back on their feet. But a lot of that money from bounce back loans got into the property market. And we had this unexpected property boom during the COVID years. Then we came to 2023 and prices were very high. The market started to cool. And what really happened that stalled the growth of the market and caused the property market to come down in 2023 and made lots of people think we were going to have a property market crash was when the Bank of England started to put interest rates up. Now, this was always going to happen. For a decade, we had really low interest rates at 0.5%. Rates were never going to stay that low. Obviously, we saw the Liz Truss, the mini budget, which caused a complete financial disaster. The bank and everyone else reacted, so interest rates shot up. What this means is anyone who was trying to buy a property suddenly found their mortgage was going to cost so much more. And single-let properties didn't really stack up. People who wanted to buy properties, first-time buyers and investors, were struggling to get mortgages to work. And so this slowed the whole market down, and we saw prices started to come down in 2023. And some people were saying, we're going to see a 50% crash in property prices. Now, the reason this is a dangerous myth, if you think prices are going to crash down, understandably, you might wait until they hit the bottom, and when they've hit the bottom, then come and buy. Now, that's a great principle. If you can buy property when it's the lowest and sell at the highest, you'll make lots of money. However, do you really want to sell property? And also, do you know when it's going to hit the bottom? No one's going to know when it's going to hit the bottom. I don't know, you don't know, no one knows. And the problem is once it's hit the bottom and it starts to go up again, it's then much harder to negotiate really good prices with sellers because everyone thinks that property prices are going up again. So instead of waiting till the property market crashes and never actually investing, I believe right now is a really good time to invest as long as you know what you're doing. And as long as you follow the 5 golden rules I talk about in my book, Property Magic, well, that's going to minimize the risks. So rule number 1 is you need to find and help motivated sellers. People who are more flexible on the price rather than the importance of getting as much money as they can. Rule number 2 is we only buy in an area with strong rental demand. And in the UK right now, most areas have got very good rental demand. Number 3 is we only ever buy property that gives us positive cash flow. What that means is at the end of each month, there must be profit available after paying the mortgage, the management fees, all the expenses. If there's not profit left over, I don't think that's a very good property investment for you to buy. Number 4 is we buy for the long term. And number 5 is we need a cash buffer to cover unexpected expenses. So if you think about those rules, think about rule number 2, 3, and 4. First of all, we buy in an area of strong rental demand, we buy for good cash flow, and number 4, we buy for the long term. It doesn't matter if short-term property prices come down because we live on this island with a limited amount of accommodation and an increasing population. So we know that property prices over the long term and rents also go up. There's something that the UK government and the opposition Labour Party both agree on, and that is that we need 300,000 new homes every year. But we're building less than 200,000 homes. What that means is there is just not enough accommodation to look after our growing population. This is why long-term property prices go up. So don't wait to buy. What you should do is buy and wait. It's a great saying by one of my mentors, Robert Allen. Rather than waiting for the perfect time to buy, there'll never be a perfect time. Just buy and hold and sit back and let time work its magic for you. Because over the long term, property prices go up. And also we have inflation right now. The other myth that you've been told is inflation is bad. Now, for many people, maybe that's a true statement. Inflation is the cost of living. And back in 2023, we had inflation over 10%. It's not been like that for a long time. And that's why the Bank of England used interest rates as a macroeconomic tool to try and control inflation, to bring inflation down. Now, the latest figures suggest inflation is 3.4%, down from 4% in January. But it's still more than the target rate of 2% with the Bank of England. So I think the Bank of England are holding off on reducing interest rates until inflation comes down further. Because everyone says inflation is bad. But I want to tell you why that's a myth and why it's not true for us as property investors. The first thing is this. When we invest in property, we generally borrow money. We borrow money, 75% of the value, and we might put 25% deposit in, either our money or someone else's. And let's say we buy a property at £200,000. Well, we might have a 20-year mortgage, interest only. At the end of the 20 years, we still owe the £150,000 and we need to pay it back to the bank, or we might refinance the property. But that £200,000 property we purchased, thanks to inflation, where prices rise, rents and values have gone up. And that property might have doubled or even doubled again over a 20-year period. So it might have gone from 200 up to 400 and 400 up to 800,000. Now, I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen, but it's certainly going to be a lot more than the 200,000 we bought it for, and the debt was only 150. And when we pay back the bank, guess what? We get to keep all that profit. The bank's been really happy just to make their interest over the 20 years. And by the way, it's the tenants living in the property who's paid that interest for you, not you. And you get the long-term capital growth. That's why golden rule number 4, we want to hold property long-term. So in fact, inflation is good for us because it means the value of our property goes up. But the debt, the mortgage we have, is being eroded thanks to inflation. That £150,000 that we're borrowing right now to buy that £200,000 property, in 20 years' time, when all the values will go up, that £150,000 has a lot less buying power. It's worth less money. So in fact, inflation is good for us as property investors, for eroding our debt, and secondly, for helping values and also rents go up over time. And there's one more myth that you've been told that can stop you from investing in property. And the third myth that you've been told that could stop you from investing in property is that property deals, they just don't stack up anymore. Well, there is an element of truth there, but you have to be very careful not to assume that that's the case for all property deals. Most people are referring to the fact that property prices are quite high. And also they're referring to the fact that interest rates have gone up so much that it's difficult to find single let properties that stack up. And I would agree with that statement in general. However, why are you investing in single let properties? I don't think that's a great strategy to give you high cash flow. Really, you should be investing in strategy to give you a very high cash flow. You want to aim for every property investment you acquire to give you at least £1,000 profit per month. That's profit, not rental income, profit after the mortgage, after the bills, after the maintenance. That's profit every single month. So the two strategies that will do that for you are HMOs, houses of multiple occupation, and also serviced accommodation, where you rent out short term and get a much higher rent. Those two strategies, when done correctly, as long as you know what you're doing, should make you £1,000 profit per month. So they do stack up. They give you great interest. And in fact, even with higher interest rates, you've got that extra buffer in case interest rates go up further. It gives you that extra protection. However, when we take out a mortgage, you can fix the mortgage for 2, 3, 5 years if you want to make sure you've got a stable amount of interest. So we're not really worried about short-term fluctuations in interest rates. So if you've been told or you're thinking that property deals just don't stack up at the moment and you need to wait, well, I would suggest actually you maybe need to educate yourself to find out how to find those really good property deals. Because no matter where you live, there will be really good property deals. And the way you find them, going back to those 5 golden rules for property investors, is rule number 1, find and help motivated sellers. These are people for whom the speed and certainty of the sale is more important than the amount of money they get. That means you could buy at a big discount, or maybe they might be creative on the terms of the sale, and you can use strategies such as lease options or vendor finance, where you really don't need much of your money to acquire that property. So those are the 3 myths you might have been told that might have been holding you back from your property investing. Myth number 1 is that the property market is going to crash and you should wait until it crashes. Don't wait, buy now, as long as you're buying good investments. Number 2, inflation is bad for us. And it might be bad for most consumers, but we get the benefit of eroding the debt, the money we're going to borrow to buy our properties, that gets eroded thanks to inflation. And then myth number 3 is deals don't stack up right now. Well, single lets don't, but actually we're using the right strategies, you can make a lot of money from your property investing. So this all comes down to education, and also it's very important to make sure you only listen to people who actually know what they're talking about. Look, I've been investing for almost 30 years. I've been teaching people like you how to be successful investors for 2 decades. I'm not saying I know it all. I'm not saying I get it right all the time. I've made loads of mistakes over my property investing journey. But when you listen to someone talking about property, you need to ask yourself the question, first of all, do they really know what they're talking about? Are they qualified to give me their view, or is it just an opinion, what they think, or even worse, something they've just heard from someone else? Make sure you're educated so you can take information in and decide, is it valid or is it not? And when you're watching YouTube videos, when you're listening to podcasts, make sure that the person you're listening to actually knows what they're doing. Not only have they been successful, but you want to make sure they have been successful in conveying their knowledge and teaching other people who've also gone on to be successful. So be very careful who you listen to. If you got value from this video, I'd love you to like the video. Come and tell me what particularly you liked about the video. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the bell icon as well to make sure you get notified whenever we bring these videos out. As ever, I encourage you to invest with knowledge, invest with skill. See you on the next video.